I'm Russ Mitchell. High drama today in the Duke rape case. A surprise announcement from the discredited DA.
It is my intention to resign as district attorney in Durham.
As an innocent former player recalls the pain of being falsely accused.
How am I going to tell my mom?
Also tonight, who do you call when the computer crashes 200 miles above the Earth? The latest crisis for the space station. Mortgage rates heading up with big consequences for buyers and sellers. And Steve Hartman's Assignment America. Tonight, a real-life fairy godmother.
Do you realize if you lived to be like 70 or 80, how many wishes you could grant?
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
And good evening. Katie is off tonight. He was branded a rogue prosecutor. Today, the man who brought rape charges against 3 innocent Duke lacrosse players went before the North Carolina Bar Association to defend himself. To the surprise of everyone, Mike Nifong announced he's resigning as Durham DA, and he tearfully apologized to Dave Evans, Colin Finnerty, and Reed Seligman. Earlier, Seligman, as his parents listened, recalled the moment last year when defense attorney Julian Mack told him he was officially a rape suspect.
The room felt like it was spinning. And Julian comes in and says, "She picked you." And my dad just fell to the floor, and I just sat on the ground, and I said, "My life is over." The first thing I thought about was, how am I going to tell my mom? And I said, "Mom, are you alone right now?" She said, "Yeah. What's going on?" I said, "She picked me." I could hear her on the other end of the phone. The life was sucked right out of her. I tried to calm her down, and I just told her everything was going to be all right, and that we were going to prove that this didn't happen.
This is Byron Pitts in Raleigh, in a courtroom still reeling from Reed Seligman's testimony. Durham DA Mike Nifong took the witness stand and soon took his lawyers and the courtroom by surprise.
Whether or not, whatever the decision is to make, to resign as district attorney in Durham.
Admitting he'd crossed the line of professional conduct and made a mistake by not turning over DNA evidence that would have exonerated the 3 Duke lacrosse players early on. Nifong was on the witness stand much of the day, but he took 9 sometimes awkward, sometimes tearful minutes to try and save his name, save his law license.
As my parents raised me, tried to do the right thing, and have always been willing to take responsibility for the things that I have done, right or wrong. I take responsibility for the things that I have done in this case.
And then for the first and only time on the witness stand, he turned to Reed Seligman and his parents seated in court. Colin Finnerty and his parents 1 row behind them.
When I saw Mr. Seligman on the stand today, I thought that his parents must be very proud of him. I'm very proud of my son. I want him to be proud of me. And I felt that it was important for him to see this, because I've always told him that in this case, although I've made mistakes, I was trying to do the right thing.
While his wife and son wept openly, most show little sympathy for Nifong's words. It was only a few hours earlier Seligman spoke of a man who had ruined his life.
It felt almost like a sick joke, like we were being toyed with. Like he was doing it, maliciously on purpose to us.
Sounding remorseful, Nifong was still defiant on the charge he lied to a judge.
But I do not take responsibility for a lie that I didn't tell. Any misrepresentations that I made about anything in this case were unintentional.
Despite the day's emotion, Mike Nifon's fate will be decided by evidence. Evidence that could make him the first prosecutor ever disbarred in North Carolina. Byron Pitts, CBS News, Raleigh.
There is breaking news tonight from space. 2 Russian cosmonauts now have 2 of the space station's 3 main computer systems up and running again. But it's still not known what caused them to crash in the first place. Here's Daniel Seberg.
We realize the importance of this, and we want to make sure we get the data to you guys as soon as possible.
Despite on-again, off-again problems with computers in the Russian part of the International Space Station today, NASA insisted the multi-billion-dollar outpost is not in jeopardy.
There is nobody in this agency, and as far as I know in the Russian agency, that thinks that this vehicle is at risk of being lost, not even remotely.
But the computers are essential. They fire onboard thrusters, occasionally needed to maintain the station's position in space and keep its solar panels pointed towards the sun, the space station's critical source of electrical power. William MacArthur, an astronaut who spent 6 months on board the station, says this technical failure is a first.
This is a situation we haven't encountered before, being unable to reset these computers and get them back online.
But NASA says the 10 people on board the shuttle and space station some 200 miles above Earth are not in any immediate danger. There's enough water and oxygen to last almost 2 months.
From a life support perspective, we're in good shape.
Meanwhile, astronauts did manage to repair a torn thermal blanket that's part of the protective exterior of the shuttle.
Pat, we heard all 21 pins are in. We are happy with the configuration, and you are go to press.
NASA wants to solve the computer mystery before the shuttle leaves the space station next week, or they'll face additional challenges.
It's more a question of the long-term health and survival of the space station itself. That's the critical issue here.
If what they've accomplished with the computers this afternoon doesn't hold up, there is the possibility of launching an unmanned Russian cargo ship next month that contains spare parts. Daniel Seberg, CBS News, New York.
Turning to the Middle East, calm returned to Gaza today as a new reality began to sink in. The Palestinians are divided, with Hamas controlling Gaza and the U.S.-backed Fatah holding the West Bank. 5 days of street battles in Gaza left more than 90 people dead. Today, Hamas offered amnesty to Fatah leaders. Meanwhile, the U.S., Israel, Egypt, Jordan, and several other nations gave a clear message of support to Fatah. The latest on the Palestinian conflict now from Richard Roth on the West Bank.
They mobbed the streets of Gaza today. This was a show of relief that the worst of the Palestinian infighting had ended, as well as a show of gratitude to Hamas. Victory has put the radical Islamic group in a generous mood, calling for reconciliation with the Fatah movement it drove out. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh told his people to show restraint, and some of his men announced an amnesty for rival Palestinian fighters. But it's not all harmony in Gaza, where gunmen still rule the street and still relish their conquest, like the armed man in the armchair in the office of the Palestinian president. Mahmoud Abbas, who used to sit there, was praying in Ramallah, 30 miles away in the West Bank. The West Bank is still led by a secular, if shaky, government. Fatah still holds power here, but Palestinians now say it's in desperate need of new plans to use it. The U.S., Europe, and Israel say they'll support Palestinian moderates by resuming financial aid to the West Bank, which was cut off a year ago. But there's real despair over what comes next, with the Palestinian territories now split in two.
You've lost Gaza.
Yes, we lost control over Gaza.
Saeb Erekat been at the center of politics here for decades, an advisor to Yasser Arafat, a peace negotiator with Israel.
All I'm saying, Gaza cannot survive without the West Bank. Nobody wants Gaza. And if nobody can help us as Palestinians, if we don't help ourselves now, no one can help us. No one.
In other words, he says, Palestinians in Gaza have nothing to celebrate. But neither do Palestinians here. Richard Roth, CBS News, Ramallah.
Israel, meanwhile, has a new defense minister, Ehud Barak, the former prime minister. Barak has made a remarkable political comeback after suffering a humiliating defeat 6 years ago. Earlier this week, he was elected leader of Israel's Labor Party, and Barak has said he intends to win back the prime minister's job. There is much more CBS News ahead, including the rising war toll you don't often hear about, veterans with mental problems. The Pentagon says it does not have the resources to help them all. And Steve Hartman has a portrait of the artist who makes dreams come true in tonight's Assignment America. Defense Secretary Robert Gates flew into Baghdad today to tell Iraqi leaders they need to make more progress to end the violence. Gates told reporters conditions are improving in some parts of the country, but he said it's still a very mixed picture. An F-16 fighter jet based at the Balad Air Base north of Baghdad crashed today while supporting U.S. ground troops. No word on the pilot's fate. The Pentagon also announced 5 more American soldiers have been killed. 3 died in a roadside bombing near Kirkuk. From the Pentagon today, shocking new numbers on the toll of war, the toll you don't often hear about. As combat drags on, more and more returning troops are experiencing mental health problems. Here's David Martin.
Mental health disorders are snowballing as more and more soldiers and Marines are sent back for repeat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. According to the Pentagon's latest mental health survey, 31% of Marines, 38% of soldiers, and 49% of the National Guard reported psychological symptoms such as anger, depression, or alcohol abuse after returning home. And as the director of the survey said, combat stress is not something you just get over.
It may manifest and change their lives forever. These are men and women who have undergone experiences that are unlike anything else in humankind.
For wounded soldiers like Dan Shannon, post-traumatic stress disorder adds insult to their injuries.
And I started smashing furniture very rapidly, so fast I didn't know what I was doing until it had happened. I'd get mad so fast, so angry, and just lash out.
Shannon is at least willing to talk about it. The survey says the stigma attached to mental illness in the military remains pervasive and often prevents service members from seeking needed care.
The stigma is one barrier to treatment. Another is the military just doesn't have enough mental health professionals, not even for peacetime, much less war.
According to the survey, there have been dramatic decreases in the number of mental health professionals since the war started. And perhaps the most damning finding, the Pentagon currently lacks both funding and personnel to adequately support the psychological health of service members and their families.
We concentrate a great deal on physical health, but we don't often concentrate on the psychological health of the service member.
The Army currently has about 600 health professionals and plans to hire another 200. But there are 1 million men and women who have served in Iraq or Afghanistan. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
David Martin tonight is also reporting a new outrage at Walter Reed. The Army Medical Center has discovered some 4,500 pieces of undelivered mail dating back to last spring. The Army says the mail, along with an apology, is being sent to the soldiers concerned. In other news, a reputed Klansman has been found guilty in connection with the murders of 2 black teenagers in Mississippi more than 40 years ago. James Ford Seal is now 71 years old. He could spend the rest of his life behind bars. A federal jury deliberated just 2 hours last night before convicting him of kidnapping and conspiracy. Up next, the housing crunch. Mortgage rates and delinquencies are on the rise. There is more fallout from the firing of those 8 U.S. attorneys. Mike Elston, a senior Justice Department official, resigned today. His duties included overseeing all U.S. attorneys, and he was closely involved in the firings. Now to the economy. Inflation alarms went off today when the government reported that consumer prices in May took their biggest jump in nearly 2 years. Energy prices leading the way. So far this year, inflation is running 5.5%. That's more than twice last year's rate. And that is helping to send interest rates higher. 30-year fixed-rate mortgages rose this week to an average of about 6.75%. Anthony Mason reports that's hitting buyers hard.
We'll just have your initial by there.
Okay. When Steve Miller went to make an offer on a Minneapolis condo this week, he suddenly found the interest rate he'd been pre-approved for had jumped.
My mortgage went up a full percentage point literally overnight this week.
Like many home buyers, he's had a rude awakening.
I was very shocked. I was taken aback, a little frustrated.
With the 30-year fixed rate jumping more than half a point in just the past 5 weeks, the payment on a median price $220,000 home has risen $76 a month. That could price more buyers out of an already slumping housing market.
It means that the correction will be more severe, the price declines more significant, and I do think in all likelihood, the correction will now last longer.
And they turned it into...
By the time it's over next year, economist Mark Zandi predicts house prices will have fallen 10% across the country.
it is a very significant correction, the biggest one we've seen in the post-World War II period.
Higher interest rates overseas have led to the spike in rates here. It's hitting lower income home buyers hardest, many of whom bought adjustable rate mortgages that will now increase.
More than 15% of those so-called subprime loans are now delinquent.
We can break up at least one of these payments, maybe stretch it out for you, maybe.
In Dallas, EMC Mortgage has set up a 50-operator hotline.
And I'm going to try to see if I can negotiate this with you.
To help the growing number of its 500,000 clients at risk of losing their homes because they can't make the payments.
We've seen a 15% increase in calls from our customers.
David Little expects the hotline will be needed for a while.
I think the period is going to be a longer period than a shorter period, yes.
In part, analysts say because higher mortgage rates are here to stay. Anthony Mason, CBS News, New York.
We want to take you back in time now 50 years to the day a time capsule in the form of a 57 Plymouth Belvedere was buried in Tulsa, Oklahoma to celebrate a half-century of statehood. Today, the car, covered in protective material, was removed from a concrete vault, along with a case of beer, the contents of a woman's handbag, including bobby pins and lipstick, and 10 gallons of gas in case gas engines became obsolete. Well, they didn't, but they don't make Plymouths anymore. This one will go to the person or his heirs who correctly predicted the 2007 population of Tulsa, 382,457. The entries, recorded on microfilm, were buried along with the car. Still ahead, Steve Hartman's Assignment America. Tonight, it's almost like magic, an artist who can make dreams come true with just a few strokes of her brush. Finally tonight, if you could be granted just one wish, what would it be? The young artist Steve Hartman met knew exactly what she wanted. Her story now in tonight's Assignment America.
You so missed it. Oh.
Shelby Johnson doesn't look like she's got a life-threatening illness, or sound like it.
I have a disease called juvenile dermatomyositis, and I cannot spell it, so please don't ask me to.
In short, it severely weakens your muscles and attacks your immune system. A flu could be fatal. And yet this 19-year-old Memphis girl who loves to paint says she's actually glad she has this potentially fatal disease. Because, she says, it's given her a reason for living. Her story began 5 years ago, when life wasn't such a pretty picture.
I decided I would just rather be in heaven, where I could run and not be weary and walk and not have trouble.
Shelby's mom, Karen.
I really thought we were going to lose Shelby. She couldn't do anything, so she couldn't paint, so she got sad. And the more sad she got,
the sicker she
got.
That's really where Make-A-Wish came into the picture.
Shelby really wanted to go to Paris.
If you're an artist, where else are you gonna go?
This was May 2002, a smiling Shelby in her wheelchair on a whirlwind tour. She and her family did the cathedrals, the monuments, the fine dining.
We went to Planet Hollywood for dinner. We were such dorks.
They had a blast. But what really turned her life around was what happened after they got home. Make-A-Wish asked Shelby if she'd be willing to auction off some of her paintings to sponsor other wishes. And right then, the light bulb went off.
And it was like, click. That was what I needed to do, and use my artwork to be able to help other children.
Her first was Brittany, then came Alexa, then Lucas. She's already paid for 5 wishes, raising nearly $30,000.
It gave me life again. It gave me the ability to look at the world optimistically again.
Do you realize if you lived to be like 70 or 80, how many wishes you could grant?
That would be so cool. I could grant like 500.
Shelby has an online auction going on right now. So if you want to see more of her work, or better yet, make a bid, we've got our link to her website on our website.
Man, what an incredible young lady. Something else.
Yeah, for somebody who's so sick, we sure did giggle a lot.
You sure did. Beautiful smile she has.
Yeah, she does.
What do you have next week?
Okay, we're going to try something different. The #1 question we get is, what happens to all the stories that don't win? The answer, generally speaking, is they go untold. So for the next few weeks, I'm going to be doing some of the stories I thought were really good, but didn't get quite enough votes to make the cut. Starting with the story of John Nino Milla, the only man in America crazy enough to do this. Again, if you want to see Shelby's paintings or suggest a future story idea, go to cbsnews.com and click on Assignment America. And don't forget to tune in again for the next Assignment America next Friday night.
Tonight's Assignment America segment is sponsored by ExxonMobil, taking on the world's toughest energy challenges.
And that's the CBS Evening News. For Katie Couric, I'm Russ Mitchell in New York. We thank you for watching this week. Good night and happy Father's Day.